2.5 years of war, Russia and Ukraine have been at war and seems like it is not ending anytime soon. Putin had ordered his country's military to increase its number of troops by 180,000, and this is the third time that he ordered the expansion of military since launching the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Now this will take the overall Russia military personnel to nearly 2.4 million troops as per reports. Putin had also warned NATO of a direct war if they allow Ukraine to strike inside Russia with Western-made long-range weapons. This came after the US Secretary of State visited Kyiv and said that US was considering lifting restrictions on Ukraine so it can use missile systems. However, this has been delayed now. But what does Putin want from Ukraine? What is the history of these two countries at war? Let's explore. Let's first understand the ongoing war in a timeline of events. On 24th February 2022, Russia sent troops to Ukraine and launched a full-scale invasion of the country, which began from the eastern Ukrainian territory of Donbass. That's when the Ukrainian President Zelenskyy declared martial law in Ukraine and officially broke diplomatic ties with Russia. On September 11, 2022, Ukrainian forces pushed the Russian military back, reclaiming over 1,000 square miles. Russia lost nearly all of its northeastern region of Kharkiv, which infuriated Putin, and in response, Russians attacked Ukrainian infrastructure, leaving many without food and water. On October 5, 2022, Putin signed final papers to annex 4 regions of Ukraine: Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia. In response to this, US and its allies slapped sanctions on over 1,000 people and companies in Russia, which now has significant financial penalties imposed on it since the invasion. The West supported Ukraine, with Biden administration announcing $2 billion of military assistance and US and Germany announcing the gift of tanks to Ukraine and more. As per the US, 1 million people have been killed in the war since the Russian invasion. However, this number is not officially confirmed. Now, to understand what Putin wants, we need to first understand the history of these two countries. It all starts from the 9th century. The region was called Kievan Rus and its capital was Kyiv. It was the first East Slavic state, and modern nations of Belarus and Ukraine draw their lineage from this state. A lot had changed in the centuries that followed. From 14th to 18th century, portions of Ukraine were ruled by Lithuania, Poland and Russia. Most of Ukraine fell in Russian rule in 18th century. Then in 1900s, in the aftermath of World War I and Russian Revolution of 1917, most of Ukraine became a republic of Soviet Union, and Russia was also the part of it. Russia was the most powerful, followed by Ukraine. Some parts were still divided between Poland, Romania and Czechoslovakia. By the end of World War II, that is by 1945, the borders of Ukrainian SSR were redrawn to include the western Ukrainian territories. In 1991, Ukraine declared independence. Ukraine inherited most of the nuclear arsenal but gave it up to Russia in 1994, and in exchange, Russia promised security and that it would respect Ukraine's sovereignty. They signed the Budapest Agreement along with Belarus, Kazakhstan, UK and US. The highlight post this was the 2004 disputed presidential elections, because mass protests were seen in Ukraine over the results, which is known as the Orange Revolution. The revolution led to the country being divided along regional and ethnic lines. Another mass movement happened in 2014, centered on Kyiv's Maidan, which toppled the government in 2014. This happened because then Ukrainian president rejected a EU deal and took a $15 billion Russian bailout. The interim government struggled to resolve the country's dire economic situation as Russian troops occupied the Ukrainian Autonomous Republic of Crimea. In the same year, Crimea was annexed by Russia, but Putin believes that it was Crimea's liberalization. The focus shifted to eastern Ukraine then, where Russia-backed separatists seized the territory, and the rebels shot down 298 passengers in a Malaysian airline flight. That's when Ukrainian forces decided to flush out the rebels. Russian army then stepped in and fought alongside the rebels and invaded East Ukraine. Peace talks between Russia, Ukraine and the West resulted in the Minsk agreements. First signed in 2014, second in 2015. They agreed on ceasefire and military withdrawal, and Ukraine agreed to hold elections in rebel-held areas, and this remains unimplemented still. Ukraine is still divided in two sides, East Ukraine and West Ukraine. The East has more native Russians and is more closer to Russia, while the West is more European and most of them speak Ukrainian. But why? Well, it is true that Ukraine was mostly under Russia before independence. So in 1700s, Russian leader Catherine the Great Russified Ukraine by shipping Russians there, and schools were asked to teach Russian language. In 1932, Ukraine suffered a famine under Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, killing millions of Eastern Ukrainians, and this area was then repopulated with ethnic Russians. So now what does Putin want? Putin says Russians and Ukrainians are one people. It is also a political move as his approval ratings started to skyrocket when he annexed Crimea in 2014. In 2022, Ukraine wanted to join NATO. In September 2022, Ukraine formally submitted an application to become a member of NATO, and Putin wanted NATO to stop expanding, especially in every former Soviet Union state. However, US said that Ukraine might not be ready to be a member yet in the middle of the war. While most of the Ukraine looks at Russia as a hostile state, experts say Putin wants to revive imperialism and restore Russia's former superpower image. In December last year, he said that there will be peace in Ukraine when Russia achieves its goals, mentioning denazification and demilitarization as objectives of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. For more such news and detailed explainers, keep watching ET Now.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.